It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
Welcome into a Monday on the Sports Blitz. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter inside the Cogswell Motors studios. I don't know that we've had on a non-NFL Monday this much stuff to talk about. You've got so much newsworthy stuff that hit the wire this week or this weekend. Not the least of which, the Hogs got a road win.
Yeah.
I was one of those, I won't believe it until it happens.
Yeah.
I'm still itching myself.
Itching yourself.
Really, it's Monday. Pinching is the thing.
There you go.
It's not scratching or itching. It's pinching. Welcome in, and welcome to me waking up.
Don't lose us, don't leave us.
Exactly. Some of those outtakes. This is gonna be on there. But the Hogs getting a win. I still don't know if I believe it. Also, the Hogs hired a defensive coordinator, and got a little bit of breaking news this morning: a suspension for the Arkansas football team. Alex Collins out for a week. We'll talk about that, and that sort of pales in comparison to three of the big stories that happened this weekend as the Olympics, the Winter Games, really got going pretty good. The Marcus Smart situation at Oklahoma State, and then Michael Sam, a Missouri defensive end. He was the Defensive Player of the Year in the SEC this year, or co-Defensive Player of the Year. Is that right?
Yeah, I thought he was the guy.
He might have been the guy, and he came out as gay. So that was a crazy weekend in sports, and we've got a whole lot of stuff. And that's not even mentioning the high school sports that have kind of been turned on their head because of the weather.
Yeah, I don't know. And when anybody plays or anything with the high school, we'll have to get that sorted out. But yeah, a lot, Marcus, you talked about. I mean, with the Arkansas Razorback basketball team, they got a road win. I was thinking when I looked at their schedule, I said, if they're going to get it done, it's going to have to be at Vanderbilt. And I had their usual trying times throughout the game, but they were able to get the job done. And so, they got Missouri on the road coming up on Thursday. So a little bit extra time. Usually play a Tuesday or Wednesday night game, but, they don't have to travel to Columbia until Thursday. So we'll see what goes on with their the Michael Sam situation is interesting. I know we'll get into it. There's a lot of different angles you can take. A lot of questions about his draft stock, the reception of him in the locker room, and there's some different angles that I want to look at it too when we get into. So baseball season for the Hogs is coming up this weekend.
Friday.
They've got Appalachian State 3-game set. Supposed to be, not a stellar year for the Hogs, kind of a rebuilding year, but we know Coach Van Horn does a sensational job. I still expect for them to vie for NCAA tournament bid.
Yeah, knowing the way Coach Van Horn is wired, and the way this team, last year or the year before they were ranked number 1 in the country in preseason. I don't remember. I think it was last year. They didn't quite match up to the expectations, and this year with the expectations lower, seems like they're going to be in the top half of the SEC. They always are. They'll be right there at the end of the year. But they had to replace a record amount of players drafted and who went on to play baseball at the next level. But they got some guys, got some young recruits. They got some guys coming back. Jake Wise coming back from injury, be a very valuable asset there behind the plate. And then they've got some pitchers and some position players as well. So we're going to be interested to see how Dave Van Horn and the baseball squad do in the snow up there in Fayetteville. If things hold off on them, it's supposed to be doing some more stuff this week. So we'll see how that. Well, by the end of the week, it's supposed to be 60. So Lord knows it could be 60 one day and 20 the next. Who knows here in this state? So, baseball is another big thing that'll be coming up here in the next couple weeks. But let's get started. Weldon talked about local sports. It's our local sports look. Friday, snow came and it kind of wrecked some plans. I know people in Little Rock were making fun of the Little Rock schools for letting out. I don't blame them for doing such because of the fact that there was the threat of severe weather. It didn't really materialize until much later, but you saw what happened when it did, and it was a bad deal. All the games got canceled. So, this week, you're going to have some teams playing 3-4 games this week. And if I'm not mistaken, Waldron's going to be playing every day of this week because they had games a couple weeks ago that got snowed out, and they really don't have any choice but to make them up. So you've got some teams going to play some tough schedules this week, all out of their routine. And I was talking to a coach yesterday who he said, every time we get out of our routine, when we come back out to play, we play terrible.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, when everybody's out of their routine, it's even playing field. It's just going to be a rough week for some of these teams.
Yeah, Mark. I mean, athletes are creatures of habit. Not just at the college or the professional level, but even in the high school level. Anytime you have a structured way of doing things day in and day out. I mean, of course, in high school basketball, you play on Tuesday, you play on Friday. Of course, Pottsville, some other people play on Thursday. But for the most part, you're playing 2 days a week. You know when you're going to play. As a coach, you know when to structure your practice, when to have harder days, when to stay off guys' legs, when to have shoot around. All that stuff is sort of set up for you. But when you're playing games, 2 days in a row or different times of the day, whatever the case may be, it's going to throw you off. And I think that's where, as players and as coaches, you really got to dial it in. And it's tough. It's not easy. And other teams going to have to deal with it too. You just remind your players that, you got to just dial it in. They're facing the same conditions you are. It's tough on everybody. You just got to overcome it mentally. And I think some of these teams will.
Yeah, a lot of these teams, they got players that play AAU and they play 4 or 5 games in a day.
Right.
And they'll play 8 or 10 games in a weekend, so they're used to playing. And, some of the deeper teams, it's going to be a good thing for them. They'll be able to play 8 or 10 guys and not have to worry so much about getting into their legs. I mean, they will get tired, obviously, but I think it can be a good thing in a way and also a bad thing because you will get worn out. But when everybody's getting worn out, it's just a battle of wills at that point. But then also, we've seen it a couple times in the last few years where, 2 years ago, Clarksville getting hot, running through, or I guess it was 3 years ago now, when they won it in the 4A and they got hot at the right time and they played all these games real quickly, the district, the regional, and the state tournaments,
right.
And they got hot. Last year, Pottsville getting hot and playing all the way through. Russellville a couple years ago in the 6A state tournament, they got to play all these games back to back to back. They got on a roll and they got all the way to the semifinals. So these guys that are getting to play, every other night or in some cases every night, it may help them pick up a little bit of rhythm, gain some chemistry going into conference tournament play or state tournament play, whatever division you are in. But the Russellville guys and girls both were scheduled to play Conway. They were going to have a red out Friday night, and they didn't get to have it. They got a blackout, completely blacked out. Nobody in the gym. Game was rescheduled. We'll have to make sure that it's going to be taking place today. But I know the Clarksville and Pottsville games are scheduled for today. Clarksville's going to be taking on Alma. Big game. It was supposed to be Friday. It was supposed to be Saturday. They practiced last night at 7 o'clock. So they're they're all out of whack, knowing they're playing tonight, and then they're going to have to turn around and play again tomorrow. And then Pottsville. Trying to think now who they play. I think it's Waldron. They were supposed to play Waldron Friday. Actually, the game was already scheduled to play on Saturday. They didn't get to go Saturday, so I think they're playing Waldron today if all things work out. And they've got junior high games too. So our boy Coach Garrett Hill, he's in a rough shape this week.
He's going to be paycheck.
He's going to be looking rough by the end of the week. But you've got a lot of local basketball trying to be made up tonight. We want to get you out there and watch some of your local teams. I know that it's predicted for snow this hour, and then maybe next hour there won't be any snow predicted, but don't hold me to that because I'm not a meteorologist, but we want to get out and watch some of these local teams play because this is the best time of year to watch them. They're starting to get their legs under them, get the chemistry going, and teams are starting to come together. You really know a lot about the team by now.
Hey, all I have to say is if the 08 Georgia Bulldogs can win 2 games in one day, you can too.
2 games, man, I completely forgot about that.
Well, you shouldn't. We lost in the championship game to the inferior Georgia Bulldogs. Stephen Hill did hit that beautiful jumper against Tennessee to send us to the title game, where we lost to a Georgia team that had played 2 games in one day the previous day. So
you really solidified why I'd forgotten about that when you said the name Stephen Hill.
That whole era.
That's a time I whitewashed that from my memory there on purpose.
But you know what's sad? That was like one of the best eras of Arkansas basketball in the last 15 years. That 2-year stretch, the Hill, Towns, that era, Gary Irvin. That was some of our best basketball.
Smash my head on this microphone. That was, looking back now, how bad Arkansas's been for the past decade. That is a bright spot. You beat Eric Gordon in Indiana and get smoked by North Carolina. What were the 8 or 9 seed or whatever it was, and then we win that game to go get smoked by eventual national champion North Carolina, I believe.
Yeah, No, they lost. I think that was the year Kansas blew them out in the Final Four. That was the year all the 1 seeds. I think Carolina won it the next year in 2009.
Okay, yeah, it was. Yeah, you're right.
I think it was Memphis Calipari no timeout Final Four.
Yeah, Derrick Rose missing free throws or whatever it was.
Yeah, and Chalmers.
Chalmers hits the three. Man, we're basketball guys. We love it. All right, that's our local sports look. Get out there and watch your local teams this week. Pay attention to us at rivervalleyleader.com and Twitter at Real Mark Freeman, at Weldon Braxton, as we'll let you know when we find out when these teams play, who they play, where they play, so that you can make your plans accordingly. I'm sure parents of players probably have a little better idea as of right now what's going to happen. I was talking to a player earlier today about whether or not they were scheduled to play, and he's like, as of right now, we're scheduled to play. That's got to be a rough way to go. You better have your shoes ready whenever it's time to lace them up and go play.
Yeah.
Did you watch any Olympics this weekend?
I watched a little bit of. Actually, I watched a little hockey. Believe it or not, I watched because that for me, Mark, the Olympics are something that. If I can recognize the sport, if it's something I somewhat watch and it's being played in the Olympics, then I'll go ahead and watch. I'm not a huge hockey fan, but it is played in the States. It's one of the more popular sports, and they're playing it internationally, so I'll go ahead and watch. Then I did watch figure skating because, the young ladies are talented.
There's a 15-year-old Russian chick who apparently is crazy good.
I saw that. Yeah, I was actually somewhere watching with some friends, and this girl, I don't know how she knows all this stuff. She's like, oh, yeah, that girl's good and that girl's terrible, and she was pointing me out and who was good and stuff. But,
nice. Well, the Americans were, last I checked, were doing fairly decent in the medal count.
I'm shocked.
U.S. put so many people in the Olympics that they sort of haven't built an advantage.
I'm just shocked because, it's in Russia and, you got some judgment type, That's why I'm shocked. I know we're talented, but,
It's just, I think it's the sheer number of athletes that the U.S. puts in the Olympics that causes them to win so many medals. Right now they stand at 5 medals, 2 behind the Netherlands and Norway. Norway is always a winter Olympic favorite because it's cold all the time. I watched some cross-country skiing, and that's the most hardcore Winter Olympic sport, in my opinion. Now, it's not flying through the air, like those slope style, whatever, snowboarders or skiers or whatever. That's crazy. Those guys are flying 100 feet above the air, spinning 78 times and landing. It's crazy that they can do that. But I watched some cross-country skiing, and I don't know that I could handle that without my legs falling smooth off. They got to ski uphill, which is basically another way. You put heavy boots on, and then you walk uphill, waddle uphill, and then you ski down the hill. And skiing downhill is fun, but it's a workout on your legs. But after you've already skied uphill and then skied straight across flat plain ground, and then you ski downhill and then do it all over again, that stuff, man. You watch the top 6 or 8 of them, and I watched just a little bit of one race. You watch the top 6 or 8 of them finish, and they all just immediately fall over because they don't want to stand up anymore. Their legs are hurting. But man, it was hardcore. And I know that there's about a week and a half left of good Olympic action. So I don't know what's coming up today. I'd have to look at the NBC calendar and find out what's going on with the Olympics today. But I know the women's hockey team won like 9-0 or something like that.
Yeah, they've been impressive too. Where do they play women's hockey when it's in the States? Like, is there a league or?
I have no idea.
I think they just show up every 4 years. Like, hey, we have a hockey team and we're good on top of that too. But yeah, I admire any Olympian. Even if it's a sport that I don't particularly enjoy or I don't always watch, just the whole context of what the Olympics are. It's only every 4 years, and yes, there's world championships in every sport, but you look at the Olympics, it's every 4 years. You have a short window within that 4-year period. It could be like a day or a tournament or just one single event that 4 years worth of work comes into, and when you succeed, there's nothing better. It's a horrible feeling if you come up short because, it's 4 more years of work if you're not going to be too old by the next Olympics. So just from that standpoint, I admire everybody in the competition.
It's definitely heating up. U.S. probably going to be right there as far as the medal count goes when the time comes for a decision. We don't get anything for winning the medal count, I don't guess, but it's just cool to be. It's that American pride. You get to say, yeah, we won more medals than anybody else. So We'll pay attention to the Olympics. If you've got anything to add to this, call us up today, 968-NEWS. It's 968-6397. Today's CrossFit Russellville poll question of the big stories that happened this weekend. Hogs win on the road. Hogs hire a defensive coordinator. The Olympics, Marcus Smart, Michael Sam. What was the biggest story to you and why? We've got some big answers for you, good answers. Coming right after this break, we're going to look at Michael Sam and Marcus Smart.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Today's CrossFit Russellville poll question: what's the biggest story of the weekend? I gave you a couple choices. You could choose your own if you'd like, but you can find that at facebook.com/sportsblitz. I asked of the biggest weekend stories: Michael Sam coming out, Marcus Smart suspension, the Olympics, the Hogs road win, and Rob Smith hired as the defensive coordinator. Which one was the biggest and why? Corey Thone, and this is a long one, so I'm going to read his comment, because I feel like it's important that he feels this way, and we ought to read it. Easily, he said, Michael Sam, he's single-handedly shattering stereotypes and breaking down barriers. He could be the guy that changes the mentality of people around the country. Chris Cluey got fired for speaking out in support of LGBT rights, and now an openly gay man will be playing in the NFL. It may even start a flow of other athletes coming out, and now young gay athletes have someone to look up to. Every young athlete should look up to him because of his work ethic, and attitude anyway. People trying to play this off as it's not a big deal are foolish to not understand how brave it is for him to come out. We've seen stories of how backward and ridiculous NFL locker rooms are, Miami and Minnesota, for example, so it's definitely a big deal. Corey Williams says the Hogs road win is the biggest one for him. He could care less about the rest. The defensive coordinator is too underwhelming for me to get that hyped about, so he's not real happy with Rob Smith. He thinks the Hog basketball win is a big deal. If there was one of them that nearly made me pass out this weekend, it was the Hogs winning on the road, because I didn't believe that it was possible. So I have to agree and say that one's probably the biggest one to me, although I do think the Rob Smith hire it's going to have to pay dividends in the very near future. So I think it'll be a bigger deal than just one win. But as we look at these topics, Weldon, we've got to look individually at each one of them. I guess the most recent one is yesterday, Missouri defensive end. Did we find out if he was the co-player of the year? Let me look real quickly while you give your thoughts on it. But defensive player of the year in the SEC, Michael Sam, Missouri defensive end, comes out and says, I'm gay. He tells the ESPN, I guess it was ESPN, I'm sorry if I mistake who it was that actually reported that first, but it says that his team at Missouri knew all year and that they kept it a secret for him. Now he's going into the NFL draft, projected to be a third or fourth rounder. Well, you were going to talk about the locker room, but I wonder if this, coming out at this time, was sort of a strategic thing or whether it just happened naturally.
Well, to answer that, Mark, from my understanding is it had gotten back to Michael Sam that quite a few people knew, and the dam was about to break in terms of it becoming public, because a lot of GMs asked Michael Sam's people, why would you not wait till after the combine? You remember what Teo went through, although Teo it wasn't an issue like this. It was still a huge distraction going into the combine where he needed to work out well. You could see a similar situation in this particular instance because kind of keeping it on the field here for a second, Michael Sam doesn't have a definitive position. He is not your prototypical defensive end from a size standpoint. He doesn't have enough on tape from an outside linebacker standpoint either. He is a bit of a tweener. That's why, in spite of his production, he is only a third or fourth round projected pick. So let's keep that in mind as well. But Mark, you look at this issue, and I appreciate Corey's his statements. I disagree with a couple of the points. I understand how it's groundbreaking in terms of he'll be the first out player in the NFL, first player that we know about. But the level of acceptance and tolerance in the NFL is already prevalent. Now, you still have people who, they've got that alpha male mentality, and that's not going to go away in a locker room. But the NFL has set a tone to where if you do come out with something like that and you do speak harshly, you use homophobic slurs, anything like that, the league and the teams are going to deal with you, to the point to where a lot of that talk has been suppressed. Not saying that people don't feel that way. People will continue to feel that way, but it's a lot more of an accepting culture in terms of being outspoken than what it once was. Now, again, the NFL locker room is not your typical 9-to-5 place. You've got men who, I don't want to throw the term gladiator out there, but it is a sport where it's a grown man sport. I mean, you got a lot of testosterone in that locker room. You got, the men. I mean, it's a grown man league, and a lot of that stuff, Michael Sam and his preference, that's not going to be accepted in terms of, we support you, but they won't speak out against him either because they know the league will come down. So that's how I look at that particular situation.
I think of it in terms of in this day and age, there are so many people who they think of Michael Sam as a hero now. So I don't think anybody, like you said, is going to be able to come out and say anything really negative against him, especially on his team. Now there'll be some other folks who I'm sure will voice their displeasure one way or the other, or whether they agree with it or not. But I wonder what's going to happen if he gets hurt or something like that. What's going to be said? What are people in his own locker room going to think about him? Mm-hmm. I think that the added distraction is going to cause him. There's no way that he's going to go as early in the draft as the third or fourth round. I'll be surprised if he's drafted. And I know it may or may not be right, but the fact is you're going to have to deal with the distraction of people asking all these questions, and it's a Tim Tebow situation. Maybe not to the same degree, maybe even more. I don't know, but you're going to have to deal with that.
Oh, I agree with you. And, I think if he does fall the way he could, it's one of those things where I know people say, that's just, that's being bigots. It's bigotry. They're not taking him. He's a good player, and all that good stuff. Well, that kind of leads me into my other point. And it's one of those things where, yes, we can be careful with it, but I do have to say this. There is a tone around this particular issue that I don't like, and it's that disagreement naturally means hatred. Yeah. And I don't like that. If you don't agree with what Michael Sam's doing with his life, you don't agree with his homosexuality, That's not the same as hatred. And what you're seeing is people lump you into a category if you do disagree with his lifestyle choices, being a bigot, being all these sorts of things. I think there's a huge difference between spewing hate and aiming venom at his direction and simply not condoning what he does. And I think we as a country need to make sure we make that distinction. I really feel that way.
And I don't know, it's one thing to disagree and it's one thing to wish bad upon him or things like that. And I don't think anybody's I'm sure there are people who would do that, and there are people who do that because he's black or because he plays football or because he's from Missouri or any number of things. So I don't like
from Missouri.
People, we're one tooth, cousin loving people here in Arkansas. They say so. There are any number of reasons for people to be hateful. So I would hope that that's not the case in this situation. But it's a big story nonetheless. Many different angles and things you'll hear about in the national media. You probably won't hear a whole lot locally about it, but national media talking about it in depth. So I'm sure there's a whole lot of stuff that will come out of this. Like I said, I'll be very surprised if he's drafted where they projected him to. And there'll be people nitpicking his draft or his combine performance much heavier than they ever would have before. So we'll see how that comes. Brad Caldwell answers our poll question. Hogs Road wins, biggest one for him because all other things have happened before. And so that's where he is on that one. Let's move real quickly to Marcus Smart. This weekend, if you didn't see it, Marcus Smart, I guess it was on Saturday, Oklahoma State at Texas Tech. Marcus Smart could have been a top 5 draft pick in the NBA last year, decided to come back to Oklahoma State, has had a tough year this year. Sometimes the shots aren't falling, sometimes the defense is so focused on him that he has to rely on his teammates and they don't necessarily come through. But whatever the situation, Marcus Smart's a little frustrated right now. And something happened in the Texas Tech game. It depends on who you listen to and who you believe. What happened? Because a fan said something. Now, obviously, he did say something. It's clear by the video and by statements made by both people that a fan did say something to Marcus Smart, set him off. Who turned around? He shoves the fan. It's a big no-no. You can't do it. So he's suspended 3 games by Oklahoma State, right? It was Oklahoma State University that decided this suspension. It wasn't the NCAA. I found it very interesting that the NCAA released a statement that said they don't have any jurisdiction over stuff that happens in the stands. So it's basically if the police don't arrest you, it's up to your school to suspend you or not suspend you, and Oklahoma State chose to suspend Marcus Smart for 3 games. There's so many different angles I want to get into with this, but your thoughts initially on Marcus Smart?
Well, my first thought is Marcus Smart was wrong. That's number one. There's no justification. I know there's been debate about what the fan can and can't say and what should be tolerated. Don't disagree with any of that. I'm going to deal with the fan here in a second. But with Marcus Smart, you just simply cannot do that. You cannot go into the stands, and I know he didn't climb upstairs. I know the fan was at floor level, but still, you can't put your hands on a fan. Unless that fan runs out on the floor and puts his hands on you, you can't. I don't care what he says. You simply cannot do it. Now, that does not excuse what the fan said, and I feel like the fan should be dealt with a little more harshly. He offered that he wouldn't go to any more Texas Tech games for the rest of the season. That's the minimum of what if I were the Big 12, forget Texas Tech. I'm talking the Big 12 needs to get involved, and I would say he's not allowed into the arena indefinitely until we review and make some decisions. If I am handling this from a Big 12 perspective or whoever, I'm suspending Marcus Smart because I know I have to. I know it's wrong, but I'm downplaying it as much as I can. And what I'm doing is I'm going to play up this fan and how wrong he was, because therefore I'm satisfying my requirement of suspending Marcus Smart. But at the same time, I'm making sure it's understood this dude can't come in and act like an idiot and say whatever he wants and get away with it. He was in the wrong. Marcus Smart was in the wrong. And I do want to say this for the record. I do not believe his statement. And, it's my right. We don't have definitive proof either way. He said he didn't use a racial slur. He used something else. I tend to believe maybe he didn't use a slur, but he said he used the term, I called him a piece of crap. Let's do a little psychology here for a minute. You only call somebody, just think about this, you only call somebody a piece of crap if you're upset with them. There's two things that will make you say something negative to somebody. If you're a fan cheering against them, or if somebody's done something to make you mad. Just think about the instances where you would call somebody a piece of crap. You don't call somebody that if you're heckling them. You do that if you're mad at them. You may call them, I think he may have said a piece of something else, a stronger word, but just think about it. You don't call somebody a piece of crap if you're a heckler. That's terrible heckling. You do that if you're upset with somebody. I just think of the psychology of it. Didn't make sense to me. I'm not going to say he used a racial slur, but I do think he said something stronger than a piece of crap.
You've been in the situation before where you've been playing a game and you've had people yelling at you from behind.
Yeah.
You block it out most of the time, don't you?
Yeah.
I would venture, and this is my opinion, and this is I'm with you. I don't think that that's what he said, because I believe that most of that stuff gets blocked out. Somebody calls you a piece of crap, you don't even hear it. But there are a certain few number of words that if somebody is to let one of those go at you, or say something about your mama, or say something about your race, or say something about say certain things to me even, it would set me off. And it was clear that one of those buzz. It's like an NBA official. You say certain stuff. You can call him every name in the book, but you say a certain word or you say a certain thing to him, you're getting teed up. You're getting tossed. It's just a buzzword and something that just sets you off. Well, somebody said he said something, a piece of crap, and I'm going to turn and run after you? No, there's no way. So I am absolutely in no way buying that he called Marcus Smart a piece of crap. There's much, much more to what he said. So long story short, I don't agree with Marcus Smart going into the stands. He's a 19, 20-year-old kid. So I can't necessarily blame him. I'd take the 3-game suspension to punch a dude in the head if he said something like what he might have said. I like what Ryan Russillo said. SVP and Russillo on ESPN Radio. He said, I can't believe that we think certain people are funny, but Smart is disgusting. I support Smart. I think the rules are set up to protect the worst people. We seem to care about the opinion of the 5% that don't get it. He said, I'm not sure what the fans said to Smart. Part of me thinks this world would be better off letting people know they aren't invisible. That's the point that I wanted to make. You can't just sit up in the stands and say whatever you want because you bought a ticket. You can just call people, even if he did call them a piece of crap. You can't do that. And it's terrible heckling for one. But you can't just stand up there in the stands and shout racial slurs or shout, this or that at kid. You're talking to a kid, grown man, sitting on the front row, probably paid really good money for these tickets. You can't do that. And the fact that the guy it's like you have an invisible wall right there. Well, I can say whatever I want because you can't do anything about it. I think it's about time for more people like him to get their face punched in because they won't do that crap anymore. If you're going to sit there and talk trash to me and I can't do anything about it, you let one person grab a hold of that dude, throw him to midcourt and let everybody have a round at him, they'll stop doing that junk. I hate the fact that so many people feel this entitlement that they can just do whatever they want and there are no repercussions, that I think it's about time that somebody gets their face caved in for stuff like this.
And to that point, I'm sick and tired of the argument, not just in this case, but any case, well, he paid his money, he can do whatever he wants. You pay your money for a lot of things, to go a lot of places, and there's still rules, there's still things you can't do. A basketball game is no different. I think, when we have these situations, we always try to learn something from it to prevent it from happening again. I do think this should shed some light on what's going on with the fans and how they're not invincible. They do have to be held accountable as well. Also think this issue shed some light on Oklahoma State. All that talent, all Americans all over the place, below 500 in the Big 12, struggling. Travis Ford, eyes are on you.
Bye-bye. Our friend Corey Williams talks about Travis Ford all the time and how bad a coach he is.
He got that from me.
He seems to have lost his team. Yeah. And a guy like Marcus Smart coming back to play with what looked like a loaded roster, and they go, that's just not good. Not a good look. No. And I'm sure that frustration bubbled over on Marcus Smart. Again, we're not condoning what he did. It's definitely wrong. He definitely deserves the suspension. But at the end of the day, part of me believes that it was worth it for him. And I know it sounds bad.
Internally, yeah.
I wouldn't want my son to go up into the stands, but if somebody says certain stuff, man, it just grinds my gears. So here I am, man, calling out folks. Weldon's sitting over here being all nice about it, and I'm saying you should bring him to midcourt and beat him half to death. We've got a lot of show left. Stay with us. We're going to go to a break real quick.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
It's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Hog Talk here on the Sports Blitz on a Monday. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Matty Lassiter inside the Cogswell Motors studios. And after a lot of delay, the Arkansas Razorback football team hires a defensive coordinator. It's Rob Smith. Didn't know it was going to be whether it was going to be Randy Shannon or somebody else, but as the days ticked down towards signing day, kind of became clear that Arkansas was going to wait and hire a defensive coordinator after signing day. Comes out this weekend that it's Rob Smith. He'll be the defensive coordinator and secondary coach, and Randy Shannon ends up as senior associate head coach and gets a pay raise. So everybody's happy, so to speak. What do you think about the hire?
Yeah, I mean, the Randy Shannon situation, Mark, we addressed that last week in terms of how it was just a better fit for him to be in a senior assistant role rather than a coordinator. We explained our reasons for that. You look at Rob Smith now, we knew that he was likely to be the guy. We heard his name for, about a month now, and then we heard within the past week or so that it was likely that he would be hired. He has been named, and we know his most recent stop was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers under Greg Schiano. It's hard to really judge based on results. You can say, well, Tampa Bay's defense kind of struggled last year, and I can't sit up here and say that's going to translate to Arkansas. I'm not going to judge him based on that. Greg Schiano's one of the better defensive minds who's coached in college football, of course, in the pros too. Rob Smith's a guy who he's not going to knock anybody's socks off. I know people are going to be like, oh, who is this guy? I've never heard of him. But if their name's not Smart or Chavis, pretty much who have you heard of? I would ask you that at home. So, again, Rob Smith's a guy who doesn't floor you with his name. But if Brett Bielema feels he's a good fit for the staff, who am I to say he won't get it done?
And the ugly uncle, Ched Carpenter, a good friend of the show, been on before. We've been on with him. He said something that I thought was pretty interesting. Rob Smith, former defensive coordinator at Rutgers and from the New Jersey area, Piscataway, New Jersey, where Rutgers is. He said if you're wondering about recruiting ties and why Rob Smith, New Jersey produces more NFL players than Louisiana, Alabama, South Carolina, and Mississippi. In fact, New Jersey ranks 6th in the nation in producing NFL players. Might be a good idea to have a guy that can recruit that area.
Yeah.
Something to be said about that.
That's a good point. I actually have, I'm not trying to give too much away, but I actually do have some pretty good ties to there are some recruiting areas. Know a guy I coach with who's got strong ties to that area. He's done some recruiting in that area, and it's really underrated. I know Texas and Florida still the kings, but in the end, the Jersey area is underrated. Really, the whole Northeast has better players than we think. You look at a Sean Moreno, who came from that area. Although he came down to Georgia to make his name big, he was from the Jersey area. A number of good players, because there's a lot of Catholics, private Catholic schools up there. You see on ESPN a lot, and so there is something to be said for that.
That's why Notre Dame is supposed to be good. They get these highly recruited guys, and
they don't pan out.
They don't coach them up, and then they end up going to the NFL, and they were not that good in college because thank God that Notre Dame doesn't have a clue what they're doing anymore. Well, I say that they're in the national championship game 2 years ago, so can't say too much. I'm not upset with this Rob Smith hire for a couple of reasons. One, Randy Shannon's going to get to do what he does. Instead of being a defensive coordinator, he's going to get to hop on the jet. Like you mentioned on Friday, you can't, as the defensive coordinator, you got to run everything. You can't just hop on the jet and go to Miami for a recruiting visit or to do this or that. So I like the fact that Randy Shannon's going to get to be where he is comfortable, and also I like the fact that Rob Smith has those recruiting ties. We're joined right now on the phone by Old School Baller. Hey, how you doing today? You with us, Old School Baller? I guess we lost him. I think we are. We're good. Old School Baller, if you're listening, I guess we lost you. Give us a call back. Sorry it took me so long to get to you. 968 News, if you want to be involved in the show today. I think Old School Baller is going to have some points to add. But anyway, having Rob Smith on the staff, I'm not too upset with.
No. And look, that's how you know our show is big time now. When callers have to wait a while, that's how you know you've made it. I just want to throw that in there. But yeah, Rob Smith, we don't know. Don't panic too much because of the name. Let's just see how it fits within the context of what Coach Bielema wants to do. We'll have plenty of time to rip him apart if he's not getting the job done.
Yeah, and I don't know his defensive philosophy, but I know that Greg Schiano and the Rutgers defense was pretty good back in the day. I think it'll be solid. It's obviously going to have the thumbprint of Brett Bielema on it.
Yeah.
Arkansas's got a really good defensive staff, and I like the offensive staff with Chaney and Pittman and those guys. So I think everything's pointing in the right direction for Arkansas to return to prominence shortly. I hope it's this year. I was talking with somebody the other day, and over 500 this year would be a miracle.
Oh yeah.
We're in for another rough year, but I hope we can see some improvements.
Yeah, I think that's what you want to see. You want to see, is it going somewhere? I mean, I don't think anybody realistically is calling for 10-2 or anything of that nature. But 3-9 is going to be a bit of a problem. If 3-9 repeats itself, that's going to be a little bit of an issue. You mentioned Rob Smith's philosophy. Yeah, we don't know a whole lot. You just look at what Schiano's defenses did. And I know we've heard this before, so don't shoot the messenger, but fundamentally sound is what the belief is. We've heard that before. We know that's Chris Ash's philosophy. I don't expect a lot of exotic things, exotic blitzes or calls. I expect to have good football players in the right spot, doing the right thing, making tackles and fundamental plays. I get the feel that's Rob's philosophy. We'll see if that's how it goes here at Arkansas.
Making the fundamental play. Well, wouldn't that be fantastic? Yeah. Finding a football in the air and intercepting it, making a tackle the first time, filling a hole as a linebacker and stuffing somebody for no gain rather than 4 yards down the field and being drugged. Right. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
One other football note before we hit our final break and we come back and look at Hog basketball win. Say what? Alex Collins being suspended for a week. I know what I make of it. I think you and I agree. What do you make of Alex Collins being suspended for a week by Brett Bielema?
Well, I hate that Alex put himself in that position, but I do love what Coach Bielema's doing from a disciplinary standpoint. Yeah, you got to understand, a lot of coaches, we look at programs when they don't have discipline, and we kind of look at it as the coach doesn't care. And that may be the case sometimes, but oftentimes, especially when you talk about an Alex Collins, you see it more so in basketball with these one-and-done type players. A lot of times the coach is scared. I mean, he may not be physically scared of the player, but he's scared of, this is my freshman All-American running back. Don't want to upset him. Don't want to get him mad. Basketball, not John Calipari. Calipari's actually hard on his freshmen. But a lot of these other coaches who get one and done, players be like, oh, he took too many bad shots, but I don't know. I'm going to let him go on that. I ain't going to say anything to him. He's going to be a lottery pick. But Coach Bielema was basically telling me and everybody else, he doesn't care who you are. When you don't follow protocol, there will be repercussions. And Corliss Marshall faced the same thing a couple of weeks ago. It's not like these guys are doing anything, illegal or anything huge. It could be, missing class or not getting it done academically. Something like that will get you kicked out of the weight room, suspended from the program for a week, and they'll be back and better than ever.
I agree completely with what you just said about Alex Collins. I think it's more of a school-related thing. I don't think it's an attitude thing. I think it's just he wasn't taking care of business in the classroom or something like that. Obviously, we don't know. It hasn't been released. It probably won't be. But from seeing Alex Collins and the way he interacts with people on Twitter and the way he seems to be, I know a guy who knows him. I say knows him. He's acquaintance.
Insider.
Not close friends, but he lives in Fayetteville, goes to U of A. He acts like he's just one of the nicest guys in the world, so maybe he just needed to get his head on straight, and I like that Brett Bielema had the guts to do that. We're going to hit a break, and we come back, more Hogs, as we talk about the Hogs getting a big basketball win at Vanderbilt.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Final segment of the Sports Blitz on a Monday. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter. We've got Old School Baller back on the line. We messed up, and I don't know what happened. We had some phone issues, but we're glad to have you along on the show today. Old School Baller, what's on your mind?
Oh, good morning, Mark. Good morning, Weldon. First off, I'd just like to say that Weldon's comments on the Missouri player, I think he did a very good assessment of that issue. I concur with him completely. The way he expressed his sentiments, I certainly agree with him. I thought he did a very good job of describing that situation, and I feel exactly like he does about it. The Vanderbilt basketball game kind of surprised me, but I did like the idea of him playing the big lineup, two big boys in at the same time, kind of slowing things down, more set plays, more things under control, seemed to me like. I don't know, I thought we were going to mess around and give it away, but I'm still not too optimistic about the rest of the season. And y'all were talking about the Oklahoma State basketball player. Listen, man, I'm a basketball fan, and I get so emotionally involved I cannot contain myself. I don't reckon my temperament towards the players. It's more towards the officials. I don't know. I've been to so many basketball games and got so involved with kids and grandkids playing. when something goes the way you don't think it's going, if you think a referee's kind of showing some partiality, I get so mad. I can't contain myself. I've been thrown out of one game and almost thrown out of two others. But how far do you think, as a fan, how far do you think a fan can go towards expressing his displeasure with a referee? I'll just hang up and listen. Once again, I certainly enjoy you guys' views on sports.
Thank you, man. We appreciate your call today. We'll get to that right now. That's old school baller. Well, now I'll take this first. Officiating, the officials is a little different than the players. There no threats. You threaten at all, see ya.
Right.
That's all she wrote for you if you threaten somebody. But if you want to tell a ref that you don't think he's doing a good job, I don't have much problem with that. If you're saying, if you're not using one of those key words, if you're not using one of those buzzwords, so to speak. But there is a limit where the referee, they really technically have the right to just clear the gym. Now, they won't do it. Almost never. But they can tell everybody, if it gets hostile enough, they can just tell everybody, get out, we're going to finish this game without you. They won't ever do that unless they're Kelly Roach, and I know he might do that. He's done it in intramurals once before, and he officiates around this area. But I saw a guy from Valonia, grandfather from Valonia, get tossed because he kept on the same ref. If you're talking about the officials as a whole, they're a lot more likely to take it and just deal with it than if you talk to one individual ref and you know his name, or you say, hey, Baldy, or whatever, and you just keep talking at this same guy and you say certain stuff, and you may just have enough and say, can you have that man escorted out? I've seen that happen several times, including earlier this year. But to me, it's kind of about the language you choose to use and how harsh you are. But if you're saying, I think you're, making terrible calls, it's a little different. I think most refs will just take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where heckling is part of the game. I mean, you're not going to get to where, the crowd is saying, I disagree with your call. I mean, it's never going to be anything like that. Even towards the players, we just talked about Smart. I mean, players are going to have to take some things too. There's some things that are going to be said to players that you really can't even get that upset with the fan about. But we know those magic words do exist, and that's where the line is. So, you go in, get your money's worth. You can yell, but you can't threaten. You can't get personal. You can't, threaten somebody's culture or beliefs or anything of that nature. Just anything personal. But other than that, I mean, it's sports. I mean, it's the fans, it's the crowd. I mean, a lot of that stuff's part of it.
Yeah, I've heard you're horrible, you're terrible, quit cheating, all kinds of stuff. And a lot of times the ref just basically has to take it. But if he feels like he's being threatened, or if he feels like what you're doing is going to affect his judgment the rest of the game, he's going to get you out of there. And honestly, if you're rooting on a team and you're causing the ref that much mental distress, chances are he's not going to call for you anyway, your team anyway, just because of the way that his mind is flipped. And maybe it's better for you to not be in there because, maybe he focuses on the game and calls a better game. I know I've officiated before, not any real competitive situation, and coach gets on me. You think I want to make a call for that guy? No, sir. Yeah. I will do everything I can. Every 50-50 is going against you. I can guarantee you that.
That's how it is.
I'm not too big of a. I don't worry too much about stuff people say to the officials. Sometimes I yell myself, and I am the most competitive human being that I know, and it's irrational competition. Like I'm so competitive that I don't even want to play if I can't win. I went to play some ball last night with some friends in Pottsville, and I got there, and the 5 best players in the entire gym were on the same team. I wasn't going to put my shoes on. I was just going to go to the house. I'm serious. I was just sitting there, and they're like, put your shoes on. I'm like, I'm not coming out to play against you guys. I don't have a chance to win at all. I'm not going to play. If I thought I could beat them by myself, I might have, but
you're the man, though.
I couldn't do it. So I was just like, I'm not going to play. And they finally switched up teams, and we played, and it was more fun that way. But I'm super competitive, so I totally understand where you're coming from.
But you're Mark Freeman. You're the man.
Yeah.
You're the man.
I tell people. Yeah. ESPN, we're going out. All right. Hogs get a 77-75 win over Vanderbilt. If you didn't watch it, if you're took my advice and you decided not to watch a Hog Road game until they decided to win one, you missed a pretty good one because Arkansas found a way to win the game, up 8 or 9, a couple minutes, 5-6 minutes left in the game. find a way to lose the lead, and you just think, here we go again.
That's right.
And Michael Qualls, and I know this is the Cliff's Notes version. We've only got a couple minutes left. Michael Qualls hits a 3, ends up to be about 2 points, some seconds left. I like the idea of Vanderbilt's coach Stallings there to stall and get an extra timeout when he had none so he could set up a play. Beautifully set up play for Rod Odom. He misses the 3 at the buzzer. Kind of curious. I know that a lot of people expected them to go for the 3, but the book normally is at home you go for the tie, on the road you go for the win. But Vanderbilt goes for the win. They lose. Arkansas comes out of Vanderbilt with the win for the second time in, 6 or 7 years. Yeah. And just Arkansas, the mentality of Arkansas fans just completely flips in one day.
Yeah, I mean, the situation, it's one of those things I've always thought it's better to play it by ear. I mean, even going for 2 in the end of a football game, you kind of play it by the game. Vanderbilt, they only play 6 people, maybe 7. They're tired. Arkansas is deep. You get into an overtime game, you just don't know. But it was one of those games where you're right. It looked like Arkansas was turning back into old Arkansas. They had their typical 4, 5, 6 minute stretch without a field goal. Vanderbilt came back and took the lead, and Qualls' 3 at the end was huge. He shot the ball with confidence all day. Arkansas shot the ball with confidence for the most part. I think that's what helped them win the road game. But I thought Kai Madden's 3 before that was huge because Arkansas had given the lead up, and then they had gotten behind by 3. And at that point, you were like, oh, it is really over. Kai Madden drills the 3 to tie the game. I think that's what got Arkansas saying, okay, it's not quite over yet. And then, Qualls hit the huge shot. But old school baller. We just had him on the phone. He said, I'm still not too confident moving forward. And you know what? I don't disagree because it's one of those things where the effort is there, but the same mistakes are there. I mean, defensively, the fouls we commit, Ja'Cory Williams, being on the floor, just mistakes like that are still happening for Arkansas. And it's one of those where they're going to beat people they're supposed to beat. I give them a chance to win at Mississippi State, although that won't be easy. State gave Kentucky a tough game over the weekend. But if you're looking for Arkansas to go to the next level and turn on that next gear, haven't seen it yet. You win at Missouri, conversation to be had.
Yeah, Arkansas shot 54% from the field. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Gave up 51% shooting. You expect the home team to shoot decently, but giving up way too many open shots. And Vanderbilt hit 8 threes. Arkansas hit 10. That's the difference in the game, really. I mean, a 2-point difference there. You get 6 extra points there from there. The 3-point line, now they made 6 fewer free throws, too, so that kind of evens itself out. But just looking at the stats here, 17 points for Michael Qualls, who I tweeted during the game, maybe the most selfish basketball player I've ever seen in my life. He redeemed himself with the shot at the end, but I still, I'm all about the Jamal Crawford guy who that's his job to come in and, right. Nick Mason pointed it out, get me 15, 1, 1, and 1. You come in and you shoot it. But Michael Qualls, man, something about the way he plays sometimes drives me nuts, where I'm going to go flying in amongst 7 people. I'm going to pick 2 guys off the bench and let them come over and guard me, and I'm not going to pass. It drives me nuts sometimes. But he was 5 of 10. He did hit the game winner, 17 points for him, 14 for Cody Clark, 11 of those in the first few minutes.
Yeah.
12 points for Kai Madden, 11 points for Mardrakus Wade, who's really made a big comeback from a time early on in this season when he just wasn't getting any minutes. He didn't quite hang his head and quit. He came back playing hard, and he's earned 27 minutes in this game. He was, I guess, the third most played player in this game. A big hats off, to Mardrakus Wade for keeping his head up and playing despite the fact that early on in the season he didn't get a lot of minutes.
Yeah, and then you saw a guy like a Ricky Scott get some minutes. He was still wild, under control, throwing stuff at the basket. But just typical Ricky. We know that by now. But one man who was squares out of the rotation, Athlon Bell. He's been getting minutes. Look, Athlon Bell's a one-dimensional player. I mean, you can't guard. You really don't dribble that well. You don't pass that well. You can get better, but you don't do those things well right now. You're on the team to shoot. When you're shooting under 30% from 3, you're not a shooter. That's not what you are.
Yep.
Therefore, you reside on the pine.
Yeah, I was thinking about that last night. Like, I if I were a coach, I would make sure, even at the high school level, that if you were going to be shooting threes, you had better be able to hit 60% with nobody guarding you.
Yeah.
At least. And I'm talking like in practice. I want to see you putting in the work. I'm not at practice, so I can't tell you if Antoine Bell is putting in that work enough to see that the results are there off the court for him. Or I say off the game floor to get him in the game. But I can tell you in the game it ain't working. And when you're just shooting threes and missing them every time, or 60% of the time you're missing, you're giving away possessions, and Arkansas can't have that. So I'm all for shortening the rotation. We've talked about that for weeks. I'm happy that Arkansas shortened the rotation, and although they played, I guess they played 11 guys in this game. Ricky Scott got 6 minutes, and Kiko got 8 minutes. Moses Kingsley only got 9. I'd like to see him play a little bit more, but Arkansas still got out-rebounded. So I'm all for shortening the rotation right now. And like you said, well, I don't know that they're going to get another win on the road for the rest of the year, but it's nice to get one.
Yeah, and I think for Kings, I think it was a tough matchup for him. Vanderbilt, they do that European-style Princeton, bigs all over the place. And, he's still learning some things on how to guard out there and what have you. But, yeah, I mean, this team, if they let me fix the rotation, there's a few more minutes I would cut, but that's just me. Got a quick question for you, Mark. Thursday night, you pulling out the anthracites again, or you pulling red back out?
I'd wear those stupid things out until you lost. I like the anthracite, and the thing is, whatever it takes. You go on the road and you hadn't won all year, you bring out the anthracite and you win, I'd be danged if I wouldn't be wearing those the next game. If I win that game, I'm wearing them at home. Yeah. Submit to the SEC. We're going to wear these anthracite unis until we lose.
Yeah.
There's no question about it for me. Yeah. They better be wearing them at Missouri. And if they lose, bring them back out against Kentucky. I don't know. Wait a little while. But this is a very important time of the season for Arkansas. Like we just mentioned, you get a 2-game winning streak going into Missouri. You can really start doing something right now. RPI jumped from 85 to 70 with the one win on the road. So it was a good deal for Arkansas to get this win in more ways than one. Still in the postseason play discussion, not necessarily the NCAA tournament, because I think that'd be a long shot. They've got a lot of work left to do. Yeah. Still some winnable games and some games that can help the resume, but got a lot of stuff left to do if they're going to even get in that conversation. But at least they're keeping their NIT and CBI and UCLA and NCAA, all these different tournament hopes alive. So it was a good win.
I agree.
All right, we'll be back on Wednesday to talk more sports. For Weldon and Maddie, I'm Mark saying so long for the Sports Blitz. We'll be back at 11 o'clock on Wednesday at rivervalleyleader.com.